What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. These do not get any easier. If any fan base should be used to heartbreaking playoff losses, it should be the Green Bay Packers fan base. But for whatever reason, they completely stab you in the heart every single time, and they are not any easier to get over. I'm recording this at 3:31 in the morning, probably posting it pretty much right after I'm done here. Had the opportunity to obviously be at the game in the press box, had the opportunity to rewatch the game, had the opportunity to write my post-game recap over on Packer Report, which will post at 8 a.m. on Sunday. And yeah, that's about it. And now here we are, and I'm going to talk my thoughts about Packers 49ers. Thank you for joining me. I know that this is not an easy game to digest. This is one of those Packers Seahawks sort of games where you just want to forget it ever happened and pretend it never existed. But unfortunately it did. And I'm going to do what I do every single day, 365 days a year. I'm going to talk about it. And I talked yesterday about, enjoying these moments, right? The reason that the NFL playoffs and these games are so amazing is because the stakes are so high. Everything matters. Every play, everything. Like everything is just magnified to the millionth degree. And you have to cherish every moment of that, because every moment is you're on pins and needles. Every moment could be the play that completely changes the course of your season. And Green Bay certainly had a couple of those that we're going to get into in just a moment. But that's what makes the playoffs so fun, is how high stakes it is. And when you have the stakes that are that high, it's high risk, high reward. And over the last 30 years, Green Bay's been rewarded twice with the ultimate prize of 2 championship trophies. But the risk is that you have that heartbreak. And that's exactly what happened as the Packers lost to the 49ers. Once again, for the 4th time, Aaron Rodgers lost to the 49ers in the playoffs. And the season that had so much promise, all the players, save for Bakhtiari, coming back at exactly the right moments, just couldn't get over the hump, couldn't beat San Francisco, and ultimately the season comes to a crushing thud in a way that I don't think a lot of us expected. Well, the special teams failure is certainly not surprising, but I don't think a lot of people expected the Packers to lose this game, myself included. It was certainly always within the realm of possibility. San Francisco is a good team, but all season long, and especially, I guess, maybe not at the beginning of the year, but for, probably last 3 quarters of the season, it very much felt like the team that could ultimately beat the Packers was the Packers. And that's what it felt like. And in a way, and this is not to pump me up or toot my own horn or anything like that, in a way, all of the concerns that I had about this team in some way, shape, or form came to fruition. And it's not just me. A lot of people had these same concerns, but I know a lot of people were worried, like the run. I wasn't worried about the run defense. I wasn't worried about the defense in general. I thought they were going to come and play well in this game. I said so much yesterday. The concerns I had, and I talked about this multiple times this week. I've talked about it with Mike Wall. I talked about it with Perry and Alex this week. I talked about it yesterday, is the offensive line. And it was sort of this issue that was hidden in plain sight. And if I'm being totally honest, I probably should have even drawn more attention to it, because to me it was clear. The grades that I put together all season long, the difference in offensive line play between last year and this year was striking. And I know that Rodgers' quick passing game and his ability to get rid of the football and, some of those things could, sort of overcome some of that. But this is never a running game that ever really got on track in any major, in any major way. We didn't see a lot of those explosive runs this season. That was nothing that ever really developed. We didn't see consistency in the running game for the most part through the vast majority of the season. There were times here and there where it flashed, but never consistently through the course of the year. Rodgers, up until really that Detroit game early in the game, never had those opportunities to sort of buy time in the pocket a ton. It had to be sort of that quick passing game. And I questioned, come playoff time against good defensive fronts, could this offensive line hold up? And I was buoyed by the fact that potentially Myers and Bakhtiari and Turner and everyone was going to be back. And if that were the case, Bakhtiari at left tackle, running at left guard, Myers at center, and then probably Lucas Patrick and either Billy Turner or Dennis Kelly. I felt pretty good about the potential of that offensive line. But with no Bakhtiari and, and everything else sort of having to shuffle because of that, this offensive line just wasn't the same. And it was the thing that ultimately, in my opinion, derailed Green Bay against Tampa Bay. I thought their offensive line fell apart in that game, and Bakhtiari missing that game was a huge part of that. But it was basically Corey Linsley playing well in that game and the rest of the line sort of collapsing. And then in this game, we'll see what the grades ultimately say, but the offensive line did not hold up well in this game. I think it was 5 sacks for Rodgers. The run game never got really going outside of those first, drive and a half up until the Lewis fumble. And those concerns ultimately came to fruition. The second one, of course, was special teams. We all knew that, but the frustrating thing is we talked all season long. I mean, Aaron Nagler and I on Let's Talk Football on Cheesehead TV basically said, over and over, like, just be competent. Don't have any fatal mistakes. So much for that. And then, the other thing is, I talked about this on numerous occasions as well. How would the wide receivers be come playoff time once again when Davante Adams was the complete focal point of the opposing defense? And we saw glimmers of this. The Ravens game is a great example. But no MVS in this game. And it was going to be up to Cobb and Allen Lazard to step up when the teams were focusing, especially in big moments, on Davante. Now, Davante had 90-plus yards. It wasn't like they completely shut him down. But Cobb and Lazard combined for 1 catch for 6 yards. Nobody stepped up. The tight ends didn't step up. The offense was entirely Aaron Jones and Davante Adams. So all of these concerns that we've had at different points, but all of them we were wondering, would they rear their ugly head potentially at a bad time? Special teams, offensive line, receivers not stepping up outside of Davante Adams, all came to fruition in the same game, and it ultimately cost the Packers the game at the most inopportune time, with home field, with an opportunity to go to the NFC Championship game, hosting that game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And everything felt right. There's no two ways around it. Everything felt right. You're getting all your players back. Finish the season number 1 ranked team. Matt LaFleur had never lost back-to-back games. They had lost to Detroit, and now they were playing back-to-back games, so you felt pretty good about that. I thought the crowd was good. I didn't think it was like a great crowd, but the offense didn't exactly give them much to cheer about either, so I can certainly understand. But it was still a really good crowd. And you had the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Rodgers has been begging for cold weather, sort of football home field advantage with a crowd. They got everything they wanted. It was snowing. The referees, I thought, were great in this game. You could maybe argue the catch fumble by the 49ers, but it ultimately didn't change all that much. I think there was anything egregious from the referees. It was just a well-played football game from that standpoint. Last dance season, 7-0 lead, go down and score right away. Everything seemed perfect. A huge 4th down stop late in the game that felt like a massive moment, yet somehow the Packers still lost the game despite everything feeling like it was setting up for a magical end of the year. Once again, it ends in heartbreaking, crushing disappointment. And as I mentioned on Twitter, it seems like there's some newfangled way that the Packers figure out a way to lose a game in the playoffs in new fashion every single year. And this was just the latest, a massive special teams meltdown at the worst time. And of course, the offense had a lot to do with that as well, and more on that in a moment. But let's talk about the vaunted special teams of the Green Bay Packers. That's as embarrassing as it gets. As brutally embarrassing as it gets. You single-handedly, as a unit, lost a chance to go to the Super Bowl and ended your season because you were so far from competent. So unbelievably far from competent. To swing at minimum, and I'm going to say at minimum, 10 points in this game off of brutal, deathly brutal special teams play is completely unacceptable. And let's just recap here. Blocked field goal. Awful protection. Nice play by the 49ers. Guy swung down on Dean Lowry's hands so he couldn't get over. They timed it perfect and they blocked the kick. You could tip your cap maybe to the 49ers if this wasn't such a joke of a unit for a decade plus now. It just is what it is. A block kick at the most inopportune time takes 3 points off the board. How about to start the second half? The very next play in the game following the blocked field goal. Start the second half, 45-yard kick return by Deebo Samuel. That led to 3 points by the 49ers. Without that long kick return, I'm not sure San Francisco ever gets down in field goal range on that drive. I think the Packers defense probably comes up with a stop before they get there. But they started at the 50 because of that kick return. A brutal play that led to 3 more points, and I put more blame on the special teams on that play than the defense. Even though it ends up 3 points on the defense's docket, that to me is on the special teams. The special teams set that drive up for failure, not the defense. And then, of course, the blocked punt. 7 points for the 49ers, their only touchdown of the game based on special teams because you couldn't block the guy coming right. There was nothing special on that play. The guy came right up the middle, right through Stephen Wordle and blocked the punt. This is special teams 101. You can tip your cap a little bit to the 49ers with what they did on that blocked field goal. That was a pretty great concept that they executed to perfection. Still should have been blocked up by Green Bay, no excuse. I'm certainly not giving Green Bay a pass. But on the punt block, there's nothing special there. That's just abysmal play. How about 10 guys on the field on the last field goal when they lost the game on a 4-yard field goal, whatever it was? They had 10 guys on the field following a timeout. There's nothing to say in regards to that. The last play of the game, the last play of your season, 10 guys on the field to try and block the kick. You couldn't even line upright. It would be funny if it weren't depressing and horrible and awful and just brutal all the way around. Oh, by the way, they also allowed a 32-yard kick return and had a false start on the punt that, gave San Francisco the ball back with a little bit better field position on their last drive of the game because Green Bay had to move back 5 yards. An embarrassment. And more on Drayton in a second. Yes, Mo Drayton is to blame. Well, I'll just talk about him now. You don't have to ask for Mo Drayton to be fired. He coached his last game as a Packers coach. And I don't ever wish anyone to get fired. I wish everyone won the Super Bowl and went to the Hall of Fame that ever donned green and gold, whether it be a coaching uniform or a on-field jersey. I wish everyone the best of luck. And I hope he goes on and has a successful coaching career elsewhere. His time with the Packers is over. I will make a physical recording or a physical entity of this recording and slobber mayo, which is the worst thing in the entire history of the world, on it and devour it somehow if Mo Drayton is still special teams coordinator after, even 2 weeks from now. It's just not going to happen. You can't be utterly embarrassed in the biggest game of the year in that phase for 4 quarters and lose the game because of it and keep your job. And, it's not like this was just a 1-game thing. This was brutal all season long. The worst special teams all season put together the worst special teams performance of all time. You're not coming back from that. So you don't have to call for Mo Drayton to be fired. He's gone. It just is what it is. And like I said, I'm not celebrating someone getting fired. And I hope he lands on his feet and I hope he has a successful career in life moving forward. And I've told you guys in the past, go back and listen to Mo Drayton's press conferences. If it didn't have you ready to run through a wall and think that he was the guy to fix the special teams, he was awesome in the press conferences. He was knowledgeable. He was powerful in his in his statements and what he said. It just didn't translate. But in regards to that, what I was going to say earlier, this is a systemic issue with the Green Bay Packers as a franchise for over a decade. It doesn't just fall on Mo Drayton. It falls on Mo Drayton. It falls on Brian Gutekunst. It falls on Matt LaFleur. It falls on the players that are trying to go out there and execute. It falls on everyone. You can't just go out there and say, we don't really care about special teams. I'm saying that from an organizational standpoint. It can't be an afterthought. It can't be offense, defense, and now we'll just put whatever guys are left on teams and hope for the best. That is not how you win in the NFL. You have to be good in all 3 phases. And the joke of a special teams that Green Bay has put out there for decades has cost them. Go back to the NFC Championship game with fake field goals, There have been numerous brutal plays in the history of this franchise on special teams. And this was just the latest and greatest example of a systemic issue that Green Bay has had for a long time on that side of the ball. And that, yes, Mo Drayton will be the fall guy, and probably deservedly so. But look at it this way, right? What name the one thing that Green Bay has done all season long to try to fix the special teams? Outside of getting Mo Drayton as their new special teams coordinator. They tried that, it didn't work. The only thing they didn't see, they brought in David Moore, but they used him one game and whatever. I'm not counting that. The only thing they did was move on from Hunter Bradley to Steven Wirtel. And guess what? On the blocked punt, Jordan Willis went right through Steven Wirtel, right through him, like he wasn't there, and blocked the punt in the biggest play of the year that lost Green Bay the game. That was the one move they made, and it backfired. And Wirtel hadn't been good up to that point either. It's not like you can say, well, it's just one play. His snaps were terrible for the majority of the season as well. It's an awful special teams that came back to bite them at exactly the worst time. And again, we've talked about all season, just don't be the catastrophic play. Just be as unnoticeable as possible. Just don't lose your team the game. And they couldn't do that. And we can move on to the offense from that, because I think that's all I have to say about the special teams. And I'll emphasize it one more time. Embarrassing special teams. We can talk about the offense too, because 10 points on offense is almost as bad. Maybe worse if you want to view it that way. But I will give the offense a slight, and I mean ever so slight, bit of accident forgiveness in the fact that was a brutal defensive struggle on both sides of the ball. The cold clearly was affecting both teams. Players were having trouble catching the ball, holding onto the ball. There were fumbles everywhere, drop passes. That was a defensive struggle in less than ideal conditions. And I can, again, give a sliver, and I mean a sliver, of accident forgiveness because of that. But go back to the opening drive. This offense was able to move the ball. They were able to move the ball in the second drive before the Mercedes Lewis fumble, and then the wheels just came completely off. And this starts with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is one of the all-time great quarterbacks, first ballot Hall of Famer, 4-time MVP. In the playoffs, he hasn't been the same, or at least he hasn't lived up to the expectation that regular season Aaron Rodgers has set. This is a bad game from Aaron Rodgers. There's no two ways about it. And it wasn't all on him. The offensive line didn't block well. They didn't run the ball well, mostly due to the offensive line. Pressured a lot. Got a little bit happy in the pocket at times because the pressure was bad. But Rodgers didn't play well either. And whether it was a couple passes that he could have, would have liked to have had back. There was the play late in the game where he almost threw the interception on the attempt to Randall Cobb. Even the long play before halftime to Aaron Jones, I think there's a legit chance if Rodgers hits him clean in stride that's a touchdown. But instead, Jones had to sort of adjust to it and kind of catch it over his head a little bit and then kind of turn around and then sort of get back up to speed again. I think if he hits him in stride, I think it's a touchdown. Adams had to make a couple of diving catches on passes that were low, had a couple of just inaccurate passes that were incomplete, and then just missed opportunities. On the very last pass of this season, and potentially the last pass of Aaron Rodgers' career as a Packer, we don't know, he airmailed a ball into double coverage to Davante Adams that had no prayer. And on the play, and he mentioned it in his post-game press conference, and I posted it on Twitter, you can see it, Allen Lazard came wide open over the middle. He hits him. The Packers have the ball probably at like San Francisco's 40 with a great opportunity to go down and win the game. And he just missed him. Sometimes that happens, but this is not the first playoff game where Rodgers has struggled. Rodgers has been the one that's been calling for, we just got to get a home game in the cold. We're going to be better in the cold, and he did not perform in the cold. He did not perform well in this game at all. And a lot of that falls on him. And while the running game and the offensive line deserve areas of blame, Josiah DeGuara had a huge drop, Mercedes Lewis a huge fumble, the missed field goal by Crosby took points off the board. All of those things are true, but regardless of what was going on around him, an MVP quarterback and arguably one of the greatest players of all time elevates his team and his players in those situations. And Saturday, Aaron Rodgers couldn't do that, and there's definitely blame to go around for Aaron Rodgers on that. Let's go back to the offense and Mercedes Lewis's fumble, because to me this was, besides the block punt, this was the other really big game-changing play. Packers go down, score an immediate touchdown, go up 7-0. Then they force the huge 3-and-out with the Zadarius Smith sack, which had the crowd going absolutely nuts, get the ball back, and drive down into the 49ers territory with relative ease. Up to that point, they had 13 plays for 102 yards, averaging 7.85 points per play, had 7 points, and were set to score again. Then Mercedes Lewis fumbled. And that play and moving forward, Green Bay had 41 plays for only 161 yards, good for 3.93 yards per play, and only 3 points the remainder of the game. That play gave the 49ers confidence when they had none up until that point. It completely changed the momentum, and Green Bay's offense was never the same. Now, I'm not saying because of one fumble by Mercedes, all of a sudden the offense falls apart. Like, that shouldn't happen. But there's no question it was a momentum-changing play, and a play that arguably changed the entire outcome of the remainder of the game. And you hate to see it for Mercedes. You know, he's been such a key member of the Packers and such a leader on this team. But he came up with I think it was his first fumble since 2013, Rob Domofsky tweeted. And it just came at the absolute worst of times. Let's talk about some good news, because there was some in this game as well. I know it ultimately doesn't matter when you lose the game. But man, Joe Barry and that defense deserve so much credit. They were phenomenal. And I thought they played great when I watched it live and in person. They were even better when I watched it on rewatch. They were flying all over the place. I talked about playing discipline and playing team defense. 11 players all doing the same thing. We saw that for 4 quarters. You could nitpick a couple things here and there. They played out of their minds. And how about that dime defense? This is exactly everything we wanted. Kenny Clark and Zadarius Smith rushing on the interior. Preston and Rashawn Gary on the outside. Devondre Campbell at inside linebacker. Interestingly enough, Kevin King playing that dime, that sort of dime linebacker role. Jair Alexander in the slot in obvious pass situations. Douglas and Eric Stokes on the outside. Amos and Savage at safety up until Savage went out with an injury. And it was beautiful. The 49ers had no response whatsoever. Green Bay was able to get immense pressure with 4. The coverage down the field was incredible. And give Green Bay tons of credit for their work on early downs as well. I talk about it all the time. You have to eat your vegetables on early downs and do the dirty work and get those run stops so you can get the 49ers or whoever you're playing into long down and distances and 3rd and longs. They did that all game long. And they deserve probably to maybe allow 3 to 6 points in this game. Adrian Amos comes up with the big pick. 4 sacks, 2 by Gary, 1 by Clark, 1 by Z. I thought Rashawn Gary was phenomenal. TJ Slayton was resetting the line. Tyler Lancaster was resetting the line of scrimmage. The defense was flying around all over the place, and they just deserve so much better. They played tremendous, and hopefully, Green Bay's got a lot of decisions to make. Devondre Campbell, Rasul Douglas, Z's probably gone. They got a decision to make on Amos. We're not going to get into all of that today, but this defense isn't going to look the same, but they definitely have some building blocks and some pieces there on defense with an Eric Stokes, a Jair Alexander, a Rashawn Gary, a Kenny Clark. They're going to have some talent there if they can retool. They're not going to be able to bring everyone back, but it's not going to be this disaster defense either. They have the pieces to succeed. Some young, talented defenders, and a lot of those guys balled out on Saturday night. Let's talk about some of those returning players. Of course, David Bakhtiari not able to go. Sucks for him. He wanted to be out there, and him not being in 2 straight playoffs, there's no 2 ways about it. It really, really hurt this team. They give him the huge contract, deservedly so, arguably the best offensive lineman or best tackle in football, and he misses basically 2 straight playoffs and a full season in the middle of it. It's just brutal, and it just changed Green Bay's fortunes in so many ways because of his injury, and you hate to see it, and you wish he could have got back, but he's unable to go. Z, Jair, Turner, Cobb, Merciless, Myers in a full-time role, they all come back. I thought Z looked pretty darn good getting the sack, had some pressure. Jair Alexander only in obvious pass situations, but looked great, looked sticky in coverage, and played well in the slot, taking over for Chandon Sullivan in those situations. Billy Turner, of course, started at left tackle. Randall Cobb played a lot, but didn't do a lot. 1 target, no catches. I thought Merciless, well, no major like big play, was a massive upgrade from Garvin and Tipa as a sort of a backup edge player. And Myers, I'm going to have to go back and watch, but he started, of course, the full game and played the full game at center. The big decision pregame is to move Billy Turner to left tackle, keep Dennis Kelly at right tackle. Personally, I thought that was the right move. When I saw it, would things have gone different if Yash was in there instead? Maybe they could have aligned it differently. Maybe they could have put Billy Turner at right guard. Maybe they keep Turner at right tackle and take Kelly out. Kelly was phenomenal up until this game. I'll have to watch Kelly in much greater detail in the All-22, but his false start in the red zone was a huge, huge play in this game. It was 2nd and 5, 2nd and goal from the 5, and instead it was 2nd and goal from the 10. They get the 1-yard play to Aaron Jones on the outside, and it was basically 3rd and goal from the 9/10-yard line. And I think Rodgers took a sack on that play and had to settle for a field goal. There's a good chance that 2nd and goal from the 5, Green Bay's got 3 plays, knowing Matt LaFleur, to try to punch it in from that range. And instead, the false start just changed the entire calculus. So, yeah, could they have done something different? Maybe, but I don't mind the decision. I think going with the veteran and Billy Turner over the younger, less experienced Yash Nyman, especially with Nick Bosa and that 49ers defense, I don't mind the decision. Just didn't work out, and you're going to be second-guessed when ultimately it doesn't work out. Aaron Jones, I thought Aaron Jones was fantastic in this game. Devontae, didn't have his sort of classic Devontae game, still had 90 yards, I think on 9 receptions. But Devontae and Jones were literally the only 2 players that did anything on offense. Green Bay netted 263 total yards of offense. Jones and Adams combined for 260. Now, Green Bay had, I think 39 more yards than that, but lost 36 or something like that on sacks. So they only had 3 net yards outside of those 2. Just goes to show you those are their 2 guys, but their inability to really get anyone else involved and have any success was of huge detriment. And I think part of it is it's fair to criticize Rodgers on maybe targeting and honing in on Adams and Jones at times, but I don't know. We'll have to see the All-22 and see if anyone else was open. I know Lazard was on that last play on offense, but tough to say. But I thought good games from Jones and Adams. They just didn't get a ton of help from the remainder of their offense. All right, let's talk about my controversial tweet after the game. So I tweeted out after the game that despite how brutal this loss was, there was no way it was in the top 5 of Packers playoff losses in the last 30 years. So a couple things. One, I was probably a bit hyperbolic in saying it wasn't even close to being in the top 5. At minimum, it's definitely close. And if you want to rank it in the top 5 of worst Packers playoff losses, by all means, be my guest. It's that those things are silly arguments just for conjecture anyway. So no harm, no foul. For me, it's going to definitely fall well behind 2014, Packers Seahawks, Broncos Super Bowl, Packers NFC Championship game, 4th and 26, Young to Terrell Owens. All those to me were much more heartbreaking losses, but definitely probably being a bit hyperbolic when I said not even close. This loss is definitely close. And if, again, you want to rank it higher than any of those, I certainly understand. The other thing that I probably should have said is on my list. Everyone's going to have different lists in those things, right? And again, you can rank them anywhere I want. I swear, you would have thought that I murdered everyone's close relative based on the way that people responded to me on Twitter, which after a tough loss, I can semi-understand. But my point was, Green Bay's been through a lot of these brutal, awful losses, and it never gets easier. And yeah, wherever you want to rank it, it doesn't really matter. But certainly, it's no fun to be on the losing side of those, and I'm far more sick of seeing those type of devastating losses. But for me, not in the top 5. Definitely could have worded that tweet better, and probably just not even bring it up at all in hindsight. But whatever, doesn't matter. It is what it is. I think the toughest part for me in this loss was potentially having the realization, and it's not over, at least as of this moment. Maybe it's over. We'll see what happens this offseason. But the realization that it may legitimately only be 2 Super Bowl wins for Favre and Rodgers combined in 3 decades of dominant quarterback play. And I don't take those 2 Super Bowl wins for granted at all. If I could go back in time and 30 years ago, I know I was like, 8 at the time, but even knowing what I know now, if you could say like, ask me now for the next 30 years, would you take 2 Super Bowl wins and, a bunch of heartbreak in all the other years? I would say, yeah, sign me up for 2 more Super Bowl wins. So I'm not taking those for granted, but it sort of hits that might be it. You had a lot of opportunities, a lot of really good teams that could have won the Super Bowl, and you only have 2 to show for it. Now, again, only 2 is a tough thing to say. A lot of sports franchises would give anything to have 2 championships, especially in a 30-year period. But it just did hit. For me, it hit that this may come to an end with only 2 in the Rodgers and Favre era, which stings. It stings. There's no way around it. As far as what happens from here, it's going to be a crazy, tumultuous, unbelievable offseason, no matter what. Coaches will go. They're going to end up with a new special teams coordinator. Nathaniel Hackett could be on his way out. Luke Getsy could be on his way out, depending if both of them get promotions. We'll see. That's going to change. There's going to be a lot of players that are no longer on this team. They borrowed a ton from the future to pay for this team that could not get a playoff win. And that's going to hurt in the future a lot. Aaron Rodgers may have thrown his last pass as a Packer. We will see. That will be a major point of drama for the remainder of this offseason. I'm sure he did say that he will make a decision by the end of the year, before free agency starts, which is March 16th. So we've got a little under 2 months at most if that comes to fruition. There's a draft. There's a free agency where they won't have almost any money. And there's going to have to be a lot of cap shuffling and roster gymnastics for Brian Gutekunst to be able to get this team under the cap and make this team anywhere near, a feasible contender for next year, if that's the direction that they want to go in, because a complete rebuild isn't out of the question either. It's going to be crazy. All I can tell you is we will be here to cover it 365 days a year, and it will be on to next season. We'll turn the page, find a way to get over this one, and we'll start anew. Hopefully a run at a 2022-2023 Super Bowl. I'm going to end things by simply saying thank you. This is kind of like the season finale of whatever this football season, right? Now we turn the new page, but for all of you who have joined me here or over on the audio podcast, read articles over on Packer Report, just followed me on Twitter, whatever, thank you. It means a ton. It really does. I still have imposter syndrome at times. It feels weird to have anyone that, even follows me or cares what I say. But it doesn't go unnoticed. And the comments and the likes on these pages every day are around 98 to 99%. That doesn't happen on YouTube. I appreciate you guys more than you know. And I'm excited for next Packer season. This never stops, 365 days a year. We'll do it all over again. We're going to get hyped, and we're going to turn the page, and it's going to be Packer season. It'll be training camp and mini camps and OTAs and draft, free agency. Everything will feel new before you know it. I'll be right back here tomorrow because we do this 365 days a year. Hope you got a great sleep. I hope you enjoy your day. Enjoy the last day of divisional round playoffs if you can. Like I said, I'll see you tomorrow, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.